Yeah, we won't call. This is not a comedy skit. We won't call on you if you don't want. Alrighty, hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight to the Push's first music industry masterclass, where we're going to show you or talk about some tips and tricks on how to release your music. Now, before we get started, I would like to firstly acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are gathered here in Collingwood, the Wurundjeri peoples of the Kulin Nation. I'd like to extend my acknowledgement to elders past, present, and emerging, and to those who are joining us from all corners of the country, because we've got a live YouTube stream going on as well. For over 60,000 years, First Nations peoples have been using music as a means to tell stories, especially right here in Melbourne's oldest suburbs, Fitzroy and Collingwood. Stories of community, creation, and activism have weaved their way through every inch of these streets and survived hundreds of years of colonisation. It is a total honour to be able to listen to these stories, and I think we have so much to learn about the stories within ourselves if we continue to listen to First Nations peoples. My name is Celine, and part of my story within the Australian music industry began with, believe it or not, telling stories. As a young music journalist, I spent a lot of time searching for opportunities or a sign that would say, keep going. I saw an ad for the Push's mentoring program in 2020, and I applied and soon enough was accepted. I was paired with Tracy Hutchison, who is here tonight. She is an award-winning broadcaster, journalist, executive producer, filmmaker and author with 30 years of high-level experience under her belt. And she is also the chair of Green Music Australia. So suffice to say, I was left in great golden hands, which inspired me beyond words. She's also here tonight, so that's a full circle moment for us both. And I'm also finishing off a law degree. So I now work part-time as a paralegal in the human rights space and also part-time at a record label. And I occasionally write the occasional feature piece or Spotify bio. So that is me. Anyway, enough on me. I should probably tell you about the incredible work that the Push does. For those who don't know, the Push is an Australian music organisation based in Melbourne. It's made entirely for young people and is responsible for delivering programs which are in tune with Australia's future music industry leaders, legends, artists and audiences. At the crux of the Push is a passion for ensuring that every young person has and knows about their opportunity to not only participate in but also thrive in Australian music. This is done through empowering young people to put on their own shows through the Freezer program and even through the Push's own one-of-a-kind all-ages events. Spanning over 3 decades, the Push has engaged more than 700,000 young people, which is like 7 MCGs worth of people. That's a lot of people. And this includes the likes of Courtney Barnett, Alex Leahy, Alice Ivy, and Angie McMahon, who are all individually releasing their music on a global level. So a round of applause for the Push. And just for a bit of housekeeping, for our friends who are here in-house, the toilets are just down the hall on the left. And it's 2023, so that means we also have a YouTube live session. And we encourage online and our in-person friends to participate during the session using Slido, which is, or you can do so through this QR code. So Slido is like an app where you can ask questions if you don't want to put your hand up, but you can also put your hand up as well if you feel so inclined. However, if you did want to, take a photo of this will come through to my phone and then I can ask the questions from there. So I'll just leave it maybe on that screen if you want to take a photo of it. And I love technology now that you can do that. So I'm so excited to chat all things Australian music, and so our incredible guests. I'd love to welcome Claire Mooney from Triple J, Nathaniel Peacock from Ditto Music, and Jenna Alexopoulos from Super Duper. Now, firstly, Claire, could you please tell us a little bit about the nature of your role at Triple J? Where did you come from? Where did you go?
Wow, big question. So I work in the Triple J music team as our assistant music director. Before that, I worked in the Triple J Unearthed team as our Australian music producer. And Unearthed is like my baby. So I work in the Triple J music team now, but I still am a part of the Triple J Unearthed team. So what I do in my role now, it's mostly music programming. So I'm programming what you hear on the radio. And then around that, it's things like music meetings and deciding what we add to rotation. What else? Lots of like adminning stuff. Like there's like weird ways we have to process songs, and I'll get into that because it's important when you're releasing music to know what we need from you. And then I do some programming at Unearthed and Double J as well. So that's pretty much it. Yeah, very music orientated, my role.
Yeah, so you're totally across the J's. And now, Nathaniel, you work at a music distribution company called Ditto, and you also exist in the music world as a musician. So could you please tell our lovely listeners about your double life and what is a music distributor?
Yeah, so I work at Ditto Music, which is an online digital distributor. So essentially what we do is we get independent artists' music, and then we distribute that music to platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, all of that kind of stuff. And it's just a subscription service, so anyone can use it online if you're a musician. You can sign up, and we get your music out there, and then all your royalties and all that kind of stuff come back to you as well. So it's just like a service that we offer. We then do some other things like pitching to playlists for certain artists, where we will kind of, take on the role of a record label for independent artists. So we, sign distribution deals with certain people, and then help them out with their release process, pitch for marketing opportunities on Spotify, playlisting, when you log in, you might see a new album pop up on your home screen, that kind of stuff. They're the opportunities that we can pitch for. We also are kind of in the world of sync, so getting music into film, TV, video games, and also pitching to companies or platforms like QSIC, who are basically these platforms that then supply music to retail spaces, gyms, that kind of thing. Not only do we distribute music to kind of your usual spots, but there's all sorts of platforms that we can put music onto as well. And as Celine was saying, I'm also an artist myself. And so, working in the industry, as well as being an independent artist, definitely has its perks with, me being able to access back ends and certain things, see kind of secret data and all of that. But I guess, it's a funny thing to navigate, working in music as well as making music. So I think I can get into that a little bit later maybe.
Yeah, you've got the inside scoop. And lastly, Jenna, you also play an incredibly vital role in how artists communicate the release of their music. Could you please tell us how you do and have been doing that?
That's a great question. So I am a music publicist. That's like the very core of my job. And through the work we do with artists is that we really get to know the artist as people, what their project's all about, and what it is that they're trying to say with the release of their music. As part of that, there is a lot of storytelling through many different channels. So the output of that is things like pitching music to Claire and the team at Triple J for playlisting, community radio, interviews in like publications, newspapers, all that kind of stuff as well. So there's that really public-facing output of the project, but then within those things, it's figuring out what are the messages, like what is it that we want the public to know about the artist, and then also working with the artist to build community around their projects as well, because that is such an important part of every musician's story in all genres, in all areas on planet Earth, is like having community around what you're doing and figuring out who you want to connect to and how to connect to those audiences. That is how. That is what and how.
Yeah. Thank you. Such important work. Now, to kick things off, I guess the reason why we're here tonight is to find out how to release your music and get it out to the world. Radio, music distributors, media channels, and artist managers as well all perform different functions and are like important steps in the process. Nathaniel, back to you as both an artist and a distributor. Is there a certain place you think artists should start when they're trying to first release their music?
Yeah, definitely. I think I remember when I was first releasing music a couple of years ago, I didn't really know that you could, as an independent artist, get your music onto Spotify and things like that. And I guess that was a learning process for me, and especially kind of I feel like the distribution world and the digital world is something that it's not really general knowledge until you have to do it. And so kind of going into that space, I think it's really important to do research. So I work at Ditto, but there are a plethora of other distributors and other options on how to get your music online and how to release it. And I guess, the first point, the first thing that you should do when you're going to release music is maybe just research what your options are. Different genres, depending on what you're making. There are different channels to kind of make the most of that or get in touch with people who might know your genre a little bit better than just kind of a general distributor. Things like classical music. It's funny, I don't know how many people are classical musicians, but putting classical music out is a very different process to putting out contemporary music. And so normally distributors won't put out classical music because there's so much more involved in terms of composer credits, writers, things like that. And so, doing the research and figuring out, this is the place that then I can upload my music and they will take care of me. I think that's really important because then you feel also that you have people who care about your music looking after it, which can be, a daunting process when you're first putting out music, is that you don't know where it's going to land or how to go about it. But I think, doing the research into that initial thing of figuring out what distributor is right for you, is really important.
Yeah, for sure. And is Ditto like a generalist? Kind of, they service a lot of different genres, or do they specialize in one type of?
Yeah, so Ditto is just kind of your standard distributor. So we will put out every genre of music. We can do classical at times, but it's a little bit different from usual. But yeah, basically any other genre, you're going to be sweet with all other distributors. But I guess depending on the options that you're looking at with stores that you're putting your music on as well. There's certain stores that might be really good for dance, electronic, be it Beatport or Juno Download. They're platforms that often DJs will use to download dance music or electronic music, and not all distributors will offer the opportunity to distribute to those platforms. So just figuring that out before you actually kind of make that first step and sign up to anything is important as well.
Yeah, and I feel like, especially in the dance and electronic space, that was such a huge genre that kind of was almost born again out of COVID because everyone was at home, like, learning how to do. Well, I know I tried, and I didn't succeed very well. So essentially, you're kind of saying sorry to the double bassists out there, but DJing is where it's at.
Pretty much. No, I've got a double bass at home, so it's not mine, but it just sits there. No one plays it.
And another popular way of releasing your music is to upload it to Triple J Unearthed. Claire, how do platforms like Triple J Unearthed support artists who are largely releasing their music for the first time?
Great question. Triple J Unearthed is a fantastic platform. Even if you're like an independent artist and are getting added to Triple J, upload it to Triple J Unearthed. We will find a way to support it, and that means royalties for you. So I think artists, if you're a new artist, you can choose whether or not you want to upload it. Sometimes artists don't want to upload to Unearthed, and that's okay, obviously. But it's such a great opportunity to upload to Unearthed because it just, firstly, you don't need to have any other support than to just upload. If your song connects with the Unearthed team, it'll get play. And you could be an artist that no one even knows about. You may not even have social media, and Unearthed will find space to play it if they think it's something, they want to support. I love Unearthed because firstly, it's all Australian music. They don't have talk shows, so they can play a whole lot more music than Triple J can, which means their ads list every week is about 15 to 17 ads, whereas at Triple J, we only add 8 songs and we spotlight 5. So there's a massive difference compared to the both stations. But uploading to Unearth, there's so many benefits. Like, you can upload a song, you can get in touch with the Unearth team. It's very easy to get in touch with them. I can share their emails later. And from there, like, you can start getting reviews from the Unearth team. You can start getting reviews from Triple J presenters. And then if Triple J presenters see that, they might be like, oh, I want to play this on the show. And a lot of our specialist shows, so Soul Control, which Tyrone hosts, or Short Fast Loud, or The Racket, they actually use Unearth to find the majority of their show playlists. So yeah, there's actually so many opportunities via Unearth. We also do a heap of competitions, and yeah, like Groove in the Mood, we just did a comp for that, and you know, you don't have to be doing too much, and you know, you can be added to that lineup or whatever. So yeah, there's so much opportunity through Triple J Unearthed.
Yeah, and I know that extends to other community radio stations as well. I know a lot of other community radio stations will also look to Triple J Unearthed and what's being played on there and their playlists on Spotify to try and scope out new releases as well. It's a really great spot.
Yeah, I feel like the entire industry uses Triple J Unearthed. Like, I know that the massive thing, we just moved to a new website and we're still getting things developed, but one of the main things that we lost was just the area code, like knowing where an artist, on the old website you could search a specific suburb or whatever, and we noticed that when we change over to the website we don't have that feature yet, but it was the one thing bookers were like, can you bring that back? Like, that actually helps our job. But it's also, like, if you're a publicist or a manager and you want to find a new artist, like, you would go onto Unearth to see who the Triple J Unearthed team are liking, or, you know, just click on a random song and you'll find it. But it's also like, there's Triple J, the website, Triple J Unearthed, the website, there's also the radio station, and there's also our social media. So yeah, we share things on social media too, and we've got such a big platform. So yeah, there's always lots of opportunities. And we do other things, like if you like Fred Again, and if you're, you know, an artist who makes electronic music that sounds a bit like Fred Again, we'll feature that in that thing. So yeah, there's many ways.
Yeah, so many different spaces. And so now that they've removed the postcode search option, does that mean all artists from lots of different places are all kind of have an equal opportunity to get their music out there? Was that ever a barrier if you're from like rural Australia or from metropolitan?
Well, for us, we have all the back end details, so it's actually not too much of an issue for us. Yeah. And we do competitions in rural areas, and we need to know where those artists are coming from. But yeah, I guess it's more the industry. They have to actually do the work and to search for the artists now, instead of, you know, just searching. But yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And as well as kind of sorting out all the nuts and bolts of your release, something which I think is really underrated, especially in a contemporary music scene, is the story which is created around your release. So Jenna, what are some questions people should be thinking about when they start to create the story around their release?
My favorite place to start is always to ask the artist, like, what's important to them. I think that one of the most beautiful things about music is every artist is so different. Everyone moves through the world differently and has different values. There are some artists that are really connected to their live performance, and that's like really the thing they want to showcase, or if it's a bedroom producer, like wanting to focus more on their craft. So I think when it comes to starting to figure out the story, just really kind of tapping into that and like, what's driving you to make music? What is it that you love about music? If you're explaining what you do to someone who's never, ever, ever heard of you or any artist that sounds like you or anything like that, like, how do you describe that? Because that's usually a good place to start, because it will tell you, it kind of like helps you understand what you think is different about the music that you're making and the space that you're sort of moving in as well. That's usually the place where I start with writing stories, but then as we start releasing music and you're getting the reviews on Unearthed, and you're kind of speaking to people and getting feedback and hearing what other people are hearing in the sound and what parts of the story resonate with them. That's how we like keep building it, and that's how we broaden as an artist's profile gets bigger and expands.
Yeah, and is that something that artists can do independently as well?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that I think a really simple example would be like if you're a band, like say like a punk band, and you're playing a lot of shows and there's a really high energy at your show, and just like that's the thing that you're focusing on. So the ways that you can take that story and tell the story besides just speaking about it is like all the visuals on your socials will all be live photos. That way it's like there's that energy when people are seeing and like posting live clips and things like that as well. So it's kind of like doing the work for other people. If you identify as a if like the live performance is a massive thing, just like to highlight that as often as you can. And all the review, like if you're ever sharing like quotes that people say, like always talking about the energy at the shows and really kind of like drumming that in as well. But it always just comes back to the artist knowing who they are and who they are and where they want to go.
Yeah,
which I think is relevant to artists at like all levels.
Yeah, totally. And it's so interesting how everyone can be so different as well. And there's so much space for that diversity, which is great. I mean, I see some people's release strategies and they've just got like 2 emojis as their caption or something on Instagram, but then some artists will write paragraphs expressing like, you know, about, so it's really great how there's space for everyone. And,
that's like one of my favorite things about music is that you can do whatever you want. Like there's truly like, there are best practices as there are in every industry, but I don't want to swear, but you can just FS up as much as you want and just like do your own thing. Yeah,
that would be your kind of like main bit of advice when people
FS up. FS up.
Awesome. I'm just gonna check Slido to see if there have been any questions that have come through as well. Oh, we got one at 5:56 p.m. This one maybe actually one has just come up and it's blue. How long before the song release should you upload to Unearthed? Maybe Claire.
Great question. Well, yeah, interesting question, because when I worked at Unearthed, the queue load was a lot lower than what it is now. So at the moment there's about a month wait, 3 to 4 weeks, just because there's so much music being uploaded. So I'd say about 3 weeks, just to be safe. If you do want to get it up urgently, that's when I would start emailing myself or the Triple J Unearthed teams. Like, hey, I've uploaded this song, it's out on this date. Would you mind approving it on this date, please? So yeah, you can upload it in advance, and you can also let the team know when exactly you want it up.
Yeah. So the earlier the better, kind of.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, everything at Unearthed, like, that's another great thing about Unearthed. Everything gets listened to, so you're not just uploading your track into, you know, like a black hole. Like, that song will actually be listened to, which I think is an important thing to note. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And there is another Triple J question. Is there any benefit in emailing producers of Triple J, or is it easier to just upload it on Unearthed and wait for them to find it? Or is that kind of the...
That's a good question too. I would say it depends on the presenter. I wouldn't email producers just because they're just kind of helping put the show together. Presenters get to pick 2 songs per hour in their playlist. So if you're doing a 3-hour show, that's what, 6 songs? can't math. So yeah, if you listen to Latifah, for example, on Goodnight, she loves dance music. Like she did The Nudge. She loves dance music. So if you're a dance artist, she's the person you're going to want to get in touch with. Or, you know, Dave Woodhead, he does Lunch. He loves punk music. So you're going to email him, be like, hey, I've got a punk song. So yeah, I think know who you're emailing your artist to. I think that's really important, and know what the show is that you're emailing. Like Ash does our Australian music show, so she's going to be like the number one person you're going to want to get in touch with. And it's good to know where your song is going to, and because then it shows that you care about your art as well.
Yeah, totally. And you've done the research, and it's something that you listen to as well, and that you want to have your music amongst. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's definitely worth doing it. Like, why not? Like, and if you don't get a reply, that's okay. And if they don't play it, that's okay. But at least they have it, and it's all there. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Claire, for those. And now another question. If you have had a few successful releases, but you've almost hit a ceiling for streams, what would you suggest to take it to that next level? Maybe Nathaniel?
Yeah, I guess it's always really, really hard to gauge if something is going to stream or not. I think it's really interesting over the last couple of years. Something that I've noticed is that streaming and numbers are nowhere near as big as they once were. Like a lot of the time you'll see pretty established artists who've put out music and, let's say, have 1 million streams on tracks. Lately it just doesn't seem like there is as much of a kind of those kind of numbers happening with newer releases. And I don't think that's down to anything but the amount of music that is being made and the amount of options there are now for people. I think something that's really changed over like the last couple of years is that things like Spotify and Spotify playlists, the ones that they're curating, are not actually getting the listenership that they once were. People are going towards more organic means of listening to music, and becoming tastemakers themselves, I guess. Looking towards community radio, looking towards smaller localized scenes where there are things that they might be able to connect to more. There's not such a general taste-making kind of spot that you can go to, I guess. And so I'd say that, sometimes you might hit a plateau with streams and it could be down to the fact that people are just being not served your music for whatever reason. And I guess the main thing to do if you find yourself plateauing with streams is then, purely from a streaming and a digital standpoint, is to direct people to your Spotify page. Get them to follow and try to engage algorithms on that platform. So the more followers you have on a Spotify page and the more monthly listeners, essentially means it's a bigger pool for their algorithms to work with. And it means that your music will be served to more like-minded listeners, for example. So guiding people towards your Spotify page, building the numbers there, basically using it as almost like another mode of social media. So keeping images on there really current. Using you can do those little posts when a new release comes out. It has like a little status. Using things like that to show that you're engaged, and kind of keeping things really current on those pages is really important because it means that people keep going back. If it's stagnant and you're not really changing anything and not really guiding people towards it, then people will stop kind of using it, I think. And I think that's why Spotify itself is a content machine. They're just wanting people to go to the platform and listen to music. And so feeding that is the way to kind of get your streams up and the algorithm's really working, I think.
Yeah, it can be so difficult because sometimes you can have all of your ducks lined up in a row. You can tick all the boxes, but streams just aren't going out. From like maybe from like a publicist or a marketing perspective, Jenna, what is something, if you're posting reels and you're doing all these things and you're still not seeing that translate into Spotify streams, is there any way to crack that ceiling?
That is the $1 million question.
Yeah, on everyone's mind, I know.
It really is on everybody's mind. I think something, a big shift that's happened, especially, I would say more so, well, we're feeling it a lot more in the last sort of like 12 to 24 months, is the way that people consume music has changed so much. People are connecting to songs, not to artists. So they'll hear a song, they love the song, they add the song to the playlist with like a pool of other songs that they found. But the gap between connecting to that song, the gap between the song and the artist is broader than it's ever been. So you'll have artists that are streaming really well, but not selling tickets to their shows. And likewise, there are artists, and there's a very successful punk band in Melbourne that will sell out a forum and they'll be top 15 on the ARIA charts, but their streaming numbers are lower. But they're like still a very financially sustainable band because they sell product and they sell merch and all that kind of stuff. So what's happening on Spotify and the stream count is not always reflective of what's happening in real life. So that's the big challenge for artists at the moment, is like, how do you create that connection with the fans that are listening to a song of yours if they are just discovering you song by song? And that's where I think a lot of the artists are feeling pressure, is to be like, how to be available on all platforms at all times, just so you can catch someone, just in case someone comes to look for you. It's a lot of pressure for artists to be under at the moment. And like, all the artists I'm working with and I work with very new artists that are like 100% independent and on their first releases. And likewise, I'm, right across the spectrum. I've worked with, in the last 12 months with artists on their like 7th or 8th album and second albums, whatever, third albums. Sorry, I get real fired up about this because it's like, it's so different to what it was like, but we've got to just like move forward and figure it out. I think something that artists can do from a publicity perspective, but also from like a marketing, and I'm an artist manager as well. So from that perspective, is just to have a plan of what it is that you want to do. So the single, like if you're releasing a song, that is one of many things that you'll be doing as an artist over a 6-month period, whether it's, you have the song, you've got the video, you've got your photos, you're playing a show, you're, guesting on another friend's song or supporting a friend's band or whatever it is, but just trying to have that steady stream of activity. And like, because artists, when you're establishing yourself as an artist, I like to think of it as world building. Like the song, the actual song that you put into the world is just one part of the artist's world. And if you do have that activity going on, and it doesn't have to be like massive stuff, it just like keeping you engaged, and there being opportunities for people to connect with you as well. It does make a difference, because on a publicity side, it's like when we are pitching, and also with streaming as well, if when I'm sure when you're pitching to Spotify and stuff, you're like, cool, here's all the stuff they've been doing recently. They're really engaged, they're really active, they've got a growing fan base. And when we pitch to media, it's like, here's all the cool stuff they've been doing, and like they're really buzzy, and their ticket sales are going up, and all of that. And I do think that like all the little pieces really help. That sounds like a lot, and it's like, but it's also like, it doesn't need to be overwhelming. More just like doing it in a way that makes sense for you, and every artist is different.
Exactly,
which
right.
we love.
Yes,
yeah.
We love to hear that.
Yeah.
Because there's this pressure to be all of a sudden like content creators as well.
Yeah,
And it's like, oh my
that's
God, I just want to
massive.
release music and
Yeah,
play
they're
music.
just like, I just want to live. Like,
yeah.
I don't want to
I don't
want to
be a TikToker.
Yeah, but also like on the streaming thing, and this is something I'm so passionate about, is that when you start releasing music, it's understanding what success is to you, but also understanding what your internal drivers of success are, and like what are the internal reasons you want to make music, whether it's to express yourself or to create art or whatever. Because a trap that artists can fall into is that if their song doesn't reach a certain amount of streams, that they feel like they've failed, and that is really, really hard. And please don't do that, because you have not failed, because you're making beautiful music, and that's the most important thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful sentiment, and really important to remember as well, especially as, we've got a lot of young artists here too. Especially with COVID too, and it's really important.
It has
to
not been
figure
an
out
easy
mental
time
health.
for music makers
No.
in the last few years. No.
And just back into, back into the mechanical side of things. Maybe Nathaniel, do pre-saves on Spotify help at all? Do you know much about the pre-save stuff? Because we see people sharing it a lot, being like, pre-save my music, but what is it? Does it do anything?
Yeah, so I guess just to explain what a pre-save is, there's basically what you can do is you can put these things called pre-save links, and there are certain stores or platforms that allow this. So Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, Deezer, those kind of stores allow you to pre-save a song. And so this is just for streaming services. And it means that people can click this link, and it means that they've saved the song before it's come out into their library, so that as soon as it's released, it's given to them kind of at the top of a playlist or the top of their homepage or something like that. So essentially it's like you're pre-ordering the song, but in a streaming way. Pre-saves... So pre-saving is all run by third-party companies. So Spotify doesn't actually pre-save the song for you. A third-party company will basically make sure that the song is ready as soon as it comes out to be placed into your playlists. So they have access to back end, like the links for these songs before they actually come out, and those links are then inputted into these systems, and then they're presented to you when it's out. So Spotify doesn't actually see these pre-saves, and this is something I only learnt recently too, because I thought pre-saves were all it. But Spotify doesn't see the amount of pre-saves you got. What it does see is it sees activity on your Spotify page. So, for example, people will pre-save a song, and often what you can do is you can set it up so they automatically follow the page, or they visit your Spotify page, things like that. And so that's what Spotify sees, and they see that, hey, there's all this organic traffic towards this artist page, and we know that they've got a song coming out. There's a multitude of people visiting the page, all of that kind of stuff. So they go, well, because there's so many people organically getting involved or becoming interested in this song or this release, let's look at these listeners and present it to other people or curate it editorially, put it on a playlist. Because they go, well, there's stuff happening. Like Jenna was saying before, whenever you pitch for music, you list everything else that's happening in every field. And so Spotify, what they'll do is they'll say, okay, there's all these people paying attention here. Also, they've got a tour. Also, all this other stuff they've written in their pitch. Let's give it a crack. Like, let's put it out to people who might be interested as well. Pre-saving is really important because of what else it brings, I think. And it also, it hypes people up on social media for your release. Like, it gives some, an action. So when you've got something coming out in a week, you have people getting excited about it, and they can actually click on something and feel like they're getting involved, I guess.
Yeah, and for people who don't know, how would you go about getting like a pre-save link to something?
Yeah, so usually, I'm pretty sure across the board now, all distributors will just supply them for free as part of the service. But there's also different websites like ToneDen. ToneDen is free, I think, still, and you can just make a pre-save link there using the different codes you get when you do distribute music. Those codes are like an ISRC code, which is like your unique identifying code for a track. So those codes will become available to you when you distribute through a distributor, and you'll be able to ask the distributor if you can get access to them, or you will already have access to them, and you can like input those codes into these websites like ToneDen, for example, and it will create these links for you for free. That I know that one is a really good one to use. Then there are other ones you have to pay for subscriptions to do all that, but also usually distributors will give it to you for free, like these pre-save links anyway, as part of their service.
Oh, cool. Thank you so much for the insider goss. We were talking before about how, the scene is constantly changing with pandemics and things like that. Claire, could you please paint us a picture of what releasing music looks like in a contemporary Australian scene?
Yeah, big question.
I
think we've already kind of touched on it. I guess it's putting out music, but there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of pressure to be on TikTok and to be content creators as well. Obviously, in the last 24 months, TikTok has become such a massive thing for artists. There are also some artists who aren't on TikTok, and that's also cool. I think, again, like with what Jenna was saying, the way we listen to music is different. Like, it used to just be, radio and, downloading songs on your iPod or whatever. But there's so many different ways to listen to music, which means listenership's going to be lower on everything. Kids are listening to music so differently these days, and they're consuming it fast. And I do agree that there's a bit of a disconnect between the song and the artist, unfortunately, and it's trying to navigate that. Maybe you two would be able to comment on that too, because I feel like it's such a big question.
It is a really big question.
Yeah.
Do you mind asking the question again in a different way?
What does releasing music look like right now in the space that we're kind of, or in Melbourne, in Victoria? Are people still attending live gigs?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I feel like all the shows I've been to in the last 3 months have been some of the funnest in a really long time.
Yeah.
And all sold out. Usually.
Yeah, things are selling out again, which is really exciting. Everybody, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
I feel very optimistic about releasing music especially in Naarm. We're the hashtag live music capital of the country. I don't know if anybody's heard, but we are. No, we've got, obviously there's such a great local scene here. PBS downstairs, Triple R, Sin FM always does incredible stuff. I think there is, as Nathaniel, I believe you were saying earlier about, I think it was you, and I hope I haven't accidentally credited you, but oh my god, my brain. People are going back to like local communities again, and really one thing that is so amazing for new artists is to really engage your most local community. So starting in the city in which you live. So if it's in Naarm, it'll be in Naarm. If it's on Gadigal land, doing it there as well. Like it's talking to your community radio presenters, emailing them, finding the like music writer at the local papers, finding blogs still exist. The reason why it's so important is like because as artists having those own having your relationships be with people in media is so important to this day. And I've been in publicity for 14 years now. To this day, when I work with independent artists, I will always say to them, it is so important that you have relationships in media. I cannot be your only connection to community radio presenters. And the reason why that comes up is because they'll come to me and they'll say like, oh, I know this person at PBS. Is it okay if I email them? Like, I don't want to step on any toes. And I was like, I would rather you email them, because when this campaign's over, you still need to have that relationship, because that's going to be with you for the rest of your music career. And like, it's not, I can't be like, I'm not going to gatekeep that. Like that's for you to have and that's yours. So I think really connecting on a local level, sorry, that was a bit of a side bar. The reason why I brought that up is because when you're a new artist, starting those relationships then, as you grow, those relationships grow with you, and also having that story of starting as like a Naarm-based artist, and then you play your first interstate show after a year or 2 years or whatever that might look like. It's all part of the build. So it's not walking out the gate thinking it's like, cool, we're going to tour nationally after a month releasing music, but it's like, what are the steps that you can take over a really long period of time? And always starting in your backyard is the one.
Totally,
the one.
And fostering those relationships as well,
and like
so
authentically
important.
as well, and like still staying in touch with people when you're not releasing music, and
Yes.
supporting their endeavors. And you'll find a lot of community radio presenters also book shows and like write for different publications, and they are so involved in their own ways. It's like a web. It's like a beautiful music web, and everyone, it's the best.
Gorgeous. Everyone's connected in Naarm, in Melbourne, which is great. And Claire, we've got a question coming through for you. With song selection to play, does your team prioritize selecting artists that have management or representation behind them as opposed to self-managed acts?
Not at all. There's no like right formula for getting your music played on Triple J or on Earth. You can be an artist with no manager, no publicist, and for example, there was an artist and they have always used a publicist, and about a month ago they were like, you know what, this is really expensive, it's not really getting me anywhere, I'm just gonna self-pitch it myself. Got a first play on good nights.
Wow.
So it is possible, and and I think sometimes it kind of means more, like when you're hearing from the actual artist sometimes. So there's a lot of benefits to that as well. I always think, for Triple J under Earth, it's not a massive priority that you have a publicist. Obviously, it does help, especially if you're working with someone like Jenna, who we love. But and other times if you're working with like a smaller publicist, sometimes you just get lost in the bulk email that they send with 10 different names.
Never do bulk emails to anybody ever, please.
It's just, but that's just what you get when you're not paying as much and they're just sending bulk emails. So you don't need to have literally anyone on your team.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. Yay. Yay for indie
Yay. Yeah, we love indie artists.
artists. And back to Nathaniel about distribution companies. Can you release with an independent distributor and then look to get signed by a record label later? Or is it a type of thing where you kind of have to choose one or the other?
I think the beauty of being independent and going with a distributor is that you're not tied to the distributor. The only time that would maybe be a little bit different is if you sign a deal with them and it's in a contract where, for example, some of the deals that we do, we have the rights to distribution for a 2-year period or something like that. And that's something that you will go into the deal knowing. But if you're just independent and you're just putting your music out there via one of these services, then you can definitely move it whenever you like, go wherever you like. That's not definitely something that we don't want to hinder someone's growth or their journey or anything like that.
Oh, fantastic. And back to Jenna. Because you've done artist management things before and still do, what would you suggest is the best way to find good management as an independent artist?
Another great question. I think that obviously depends on the artist. It depends on the goals you have and knowing where you are, but also probably most importantly, where it is that you want to go. I think a good place to start is usually looking to artists that you have, like, you've not only loved them as, I'm sure, as artists, but just you love the path that they've been on and you kind of want to see something similar and starting there. In terms of the right time to look for management, that's also a bit of like how long is a piece of string question. I think being self-managed at the start is really valuable because you get an understanding of how everything works. And once things start to become like a bit much or, you kind of need a bit of extra support, there are a number of artist managers that do consulting. So they'll kind of like consult with you on a hour by hour or like session by session basis and really help you kind of like get in the zone and figure out everything that you want to do. And then sometimes after that is no longer useful and you kind of need more, then looking to management as well. The artist I managed 1.5. The full artist that I manage is the reason why I started managing her is because she's a incredibly brilliant musician, but has absolutely no business brain whatsoever. So it's like there was a very clear, like, I have a very strong business brain and I'm truly the least musically inclined person on planet Earth. So I'm like, that was a really good pairing. And like, obviously I really believe in her and the music and all of that. But I always suggest people to, look to artists that, the journey of the artist really resonates with them and contact their manager.
Okay.
And just have the conversation. Like, what's that beautiful saying? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Gorgeous.
Little NBA pun in there for anybody interested. Yeah.
And if people are looking to seek representation or a publicist, do you have any sites or resources that you suggest people engage with? Are there any I don't know.
Oh, like a database of publicists?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Like
Is there?
are there any ones that you really
I don't
think
know
would
if
be
there's a
beneficial
database.
for people who are just starting out?
I don't think there's a database.
No.
I mean, you
Someone's
could type
just
in
asked.
Music publicist,
Melbourne. Yeah, exactly.
I might come
And
up.
then-
You never know.
And likewise for Triple J, if people are looking to find presenters or producers' emails, is there like a thing on Triple J's website, or is it kind of you have to do a bit of digging?
Well, there's not really a data list. Like, usually we'll send out a contact list. We haven't done that in a while, but every ABC email is exactly the same. It's lastname.firstname@abc.net.au.
I was like, tell them the tea. It's the same for
You heard it
everybody.
here first.
So if you just know their first name and last name, you'll be able to contact them easy. Unless it's like Dave Ruby Howe and you get a bit confused, and then it's like rubyhow.dave. But you'll work it out. And you can always find them on socials. Like, we're always like available. Well, most of the time. It depends on who the person is. But yeah, just feel free to email, DM, and if they don't reply back again, it's okay. But yeah, lastname.firstname@abc.net.au.
Wow, the tips and tricks of Triple J. Thank you, Claire, for that. Really good to see that insider knowledge for people who are, trying to find present. I always tried to find, not that I was ever releasing music, but just for radio shows and trying to contact people, I was always trying to look for some sort of masterful contact list. But you do have to just sometimes do a bit of digging around and
could start one
come to the Push Music Masterclasses.
of course.
And the next question we've got on here is there even a point in releasing an album, or is a series of singles better? Maybe Claire or Nathaniel?
Yeah, I guess
From a
I think, look, purely that's up to preference. I think something that's really important to keep in mind is that what's important to you is what you should do. There's things you know, you can release singles, you can pitch them, you can have those singles on radio or whatever. But if you're an artist who envisions himself releasing an album, then do it, I think. Because in the end of the day, it's, you know, you're making art, you're making something that you are proud of, and if that's the vision at the end of the day, that's what's important. Not necessarily, streams, not necessarily how many playlists you're on or any of that. I think that's something that you should always keep in mind, is that if you're falling into the trap of doing things because you think other people will like it, then I feel like it loses some of that magic, I guess. Yeah.
Just on that, I mean, we love albums. We have a feature album every week at Triple J. I think, there's no right or wrong answer. I think, you know, if you don't feel up to dropping an album, there's always EPs. That's always a great option. And you can kind of just work your way up, like drop a few singles. If they're not quite there where you want them to be, you know, streaming wise or whatever, you can, you know, keep dropping singles or drop an EP and keep building to that album. Because, you know, from our perspective, you know, if it's an artist who is slowly growing and then they've finally made it to their debut album, that's really exciting for us. So we'll want to support that. But, you know, if you've dropped an album and you're still, you know, that's fine too. Yeah.
I think something else that... Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you go. I was just going to say, sorry, that so how feature albums work at Triple J, we usually will feature an album and we highlight about 8 tracks from that album. And then after that feature album has ended, we keep basically all those songs in rotation. So we'll have like a main focus track and then, you know, 5 or 6 songs still in rotation. So yeah, I definitely think it's worth building up to an album. Back to you, Nathaniel.
I was going to say also then, from a streaming perspective, when we're pitching something that we see gets results, essentially is telling a story. And so often how we'll pitch to Spotify or to Apple Music or something like that is we'll tell the story through, they're releasing these singles and this is the end product, this is the EP or this is the album. And often what we see is that in telling that story, then we kind of build the relationship with editors at DSP. And I think it also goes for radio as well.
Totally, yeah.
Kind of, building that story and then having this end product that is, you know, finishing off a campaign, for example, that will entice editors to kind of get more on board. So I think it is still, you know, from that perspective, really important to, release bigger bodies of work to kind of cap off an end of an era. You know, you might have released 5 singles, you release a 6th, it's your EP. And it's like a finished product and then a story that you can tell and a body of work that is cohesive. So it's important as well in terms of pitching and getting results.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point. And also when you're looking from the perspective of a presenter, it gives them something to talk about. They can be like, I remember when they first uploaded this song to Unearthed, or when they put out this single last year and then they made it in the Hottest 100 and now it's their album. So yeah, that storytelling's an important part for us too.
Yeah, and just echoing that as well, I think I kind of, in the role of publicity and like placing stories with media and all of that, the album is like the context for the project. So there's only there's like a ceiling on what kind of coverage you can get around singles, because often if you're pitching to like the newspapers or for more in-depth features, the very first question is there an album or a tour? Like that's what they want to know, like, because it provides bigger context for their readers as to why this artist and why now. Like that's what editors think about when they're deciding who to feature and who to talk to and who to run interviews with. It's like, why them, why now? So if we're like, oh, they're actually releasing an album and this is like their debut or whatever it is. So I personally love albums for that reason. Something that it's kind of going against every instinct I have to say this, but obviously everyone releases music for different reasons, and no, we don't judge because everyone's on their own path. If you are like, I feel like with streaming, the Spotify algorithm responds well to artists that just like month to month releases. So if you are thinking about releasing music on a single by single basis, releasing songs every like 4 or 5 weeks, it will be favorable from that algorithmic standpoint. It won't necessarily translate to like media will not cover you every 4 to 5 weeks. Radio will not add you every 4 to 5 weeks. That will not happen. So, but just keeping that in mind as well, because if that's something that you want to do and you're not so concerned with publicity or radio play, but you really want to kind of try and get in on streaming, not to cut your grass and speak in your lane, but I'm like, that's something to keep in mind as well. It's like they are quite, they like that continual uploading of music. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I just love albums because I love albums. And I also really just do love, I feel like when you are releasing like a single, it just leaves so much more to the imagination. You're just like, oh my God, what's going to be next? What's the whole feel of this? If you hear 3 songs could like be totally different to the whole feel of the album, then you finally get this like, I'm a big fan of big albums as well, 20 tracks, which doesn't seem like it's that big.
But 199 songs.
Yes.
Yeah. 9.5 hours of music. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there like a recipe? Like, is there, if someone is planning to release an album, should you release like 3 singles and then that's it, and then you release? Is there kind of, or you can just kind of do whatever you want to do?
A big trend I'm seeing, a big shift in trend I've been seeing in the last 6 months is longer lead times into album releases. So usually, even as recently as like 2 years ago, it would be single 1, no album announced. Single 2, album announced. Album out with single 3. Like it was, we would usually be onboarded for like 3 to 4 month album campaigns. Now our album campaigns are averaging about 7 to 9 months. So, and some, if they've got like a 10 or 12 track record, they might be releasing 4 or 5 singles, with the 5th single being the focus track for streaming on the day of release. I'm not sure how I feel about that personally, because I do think, while I do understand how it does help support things like streaming, I'm obviously looking at it from a like storytelling publicity perspective, and a big goal of ours is to maintain and build momentum. And if you're working with artists, whether it's on their first album or first EP or second album, maintaining momentum over 9 months, especially if they haven't been touring and there isn't much else going on, it is very challenging. So it's just really having those conversations with the artists and managing expectations, but also just being like, this is the plan. Like, we'll target these people around single 1. You know, we might pitch single 1 to Triple J for a first play and then go in hard on playlisting with the second single when there's an album to talk about, as well as like all the other activity, and just kind of choosing the targets and planning what we want to achieve. But yeah, 9 months is a long time.
Yeah.
Just on that note too, in terms of our perspective, interesting that you say that, because there's been times where it's come to, you know, picking a feature album, but, you know, the album's only 10 songs and we've already played 7 of them. We just can't make it work as a feature album. So that's just something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never thought about it like that. I never thought about it like that, but that's a really good point.
Yeah, because you know, if we've heavily supported 3 songs from like a year ago, and then a year later we've supported another 3 or so, it just makes it very difficult. And that's why sometimes we'll pass on a feature album. Not because it's not good, it's just we've already played most of it anyway.
I think how we're approaching it at the moment is, let's say there's an EP, for example, a 5-track EP. What we'll often do is first track will be like a warm-up track for streaming, kind of getting algorithms engaged. The second single will be the big one, and that'll be the one you pitch to radio. And then you release like a fan favourite. So something that you know that active listeners or people who are really following you will really like. Maybe it's a slower, more emotional song. I don't know. And then you drop your EP with a focus track. And I think it's kind of looking at it with, you know, each of those singles are actually going to perform different, different things. And one thing that we're doing at the moment, it's kind of a US release strategy, is that release a single every 3 weeks, dominate the market for a 3-month period, and then just go away, and then come back again and do the same thing. So just dominate, go away, write another album or whatever it is. And that's just different schools of thought, I guess.
Yeah, it's great to hear. Like, we've got 3 quite different perspectives, and it's so interesting to see how they all intersect. I would love to talk about young people and the Australian music scene well into the night, but unfortunately, I can't. I have to go to bed, and so do you. But before we go, I would like to ask each of our panelists, what is one thing you would like young people to absorb from this conversation?
You can go first, Claire.
Another big question.
Hot seat.
Great question. I guess, you know, it's such an exciting industry to be a part of. It is small. People are easy to get in touch with. I think it's also great to, you know, find someone that you look up to. Mentors are really great, and you know, as we've got Tracy here, and you know, if they are like an artist that you love, like, get in touch with them and, you know, build that relationship with them too. I think, really being a part of the community is going to help you a lot, and finding a mentor is really helpful. So I think get in touch, you know, feel excited, really work on your art. Your art is the most important thing at the end of the day. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing, it's just about that song. For example, we're not going to add a song if it's not good. So, but if it's good and you've got, you know, you don't have a team, that's fine. Like, we love the song, we're going to champion it. So, I hope you take those things away.
I would like you to take away that, and I'm saying this while I think, I think, just to repeat myself from before, I think just like understanding why you're releasing music and what is important to you is the place that you need to start. It will look wildly different for everybody, and there is no right, there is no wrong. You really just need to like be out in the world doing your own thing, and connecting with people, building that community, like whether it is through programs like The Push or community radio or going to parties or whatever it is. Find your people, because like they will play such an important role in what you're doing, and likewise you will for them as well. And the only other thing that I would ask is to be as organized as you can and have all of your assets properly labeled, and always credit your photographers in your press photo file names, please. Thank you. And scene.
Thanks.
I guess it's kind of echoing what these guys said, but I think I've been a culprit of it myself in the past. When I'm making music, I found myself, you know, getting really stressed or getting really obsessed with, you know, the business side of it and all that kind of stuff. I think like it's really important also to just step back when you realize that you're not having a good time doing it, figuring out why that is, and kind of distancing yourself, or figuring out a way where it's not going to be as, you know, as not as taxing. I think like have fun. I think that's a big one. Like, music's supposed to be fun or cathartic or whatever, why you make it. I don't know, as a therapy, who knows, do it for that reason first, and then, you know, maybe set aside time to do the business side of it, but don't become obsessed with, you know, what's right, what's wrong. If you like playing gigs, play gigs. If you like writing music, do that. If you like recording music, do that. The other stuff will come along with it. But I think focus on having a good time.
Wow, thank you guys so much. Can everyone join me in thanking these guys for spreading the music goodness? So essentially, do what you want to do and do it with love is what I've gathered. There we have it. And be organised. There we have it. You heard it here first. The push rocks the world. Big love to you and yours, and I can't wait to hear all the stories you guys are going to tell. Now, I can smell pizza, so I think thank you so much for turning up, and I hope to see you guys soon. Oh, and also, everyone, our lovely guests will be hovering around. If you'd like to stay and ask some more questions, yeah, feel free to stay and mingle, meet some new friends, network, whatever that means. Yes, I'll be here too.